At DLP Capital, we empower lives, build thriving communities, and drive success for our investors and team members. We believe in the power of real estate to transform the lives of our residents by providing them with high-quality, attainable housing that fosters a sense of belonging and community. But it doesn't stop there. Through our commitment to excellence, we also enrich the lives of our investors and team members. By increasing returns, driving profits, and fostering fulfillment, we create opportunities for growth and success. We're not just in the business of real estate, we're in the business of making a difference, and we can't do it alone. We need your help to continue to build thriving communities and transform lives. So join DLP Capital, and together, let's make a difference.
Wonderful. So this is our second panel. A very famous person said this: culture eats strategy for breakfast. Culture eats strategy for breakfast. Anyone want to take a guess who said that? Very famous person. No. His first name is Peter. Yes, Peter Drucker. So culture is just so important. So we're going to kind of double click on culture with this fantastic panel, okay? And I'm excited to lead it. We're going to have a lot of fun. We're going to cover kind of 3 big topics, and then we're going to open up questions to the audience. But first, who is this cool panel up here? Who are these folks? Now, some of them you know, but some of them maybe you don't. So I'm going to let them kind of give a nickel tour of their background. Can we start with you, Jacquie Hart, please?
I'll give you a 2-cent tour.
Okay.
Jacquie Hart, an investor, advisor, friend of the firm, and a proud current San Diegan.
I'm Kip Sowden, CEO of Reef Holdings. And I know I'm in California and I'm not wearing glasses like because I'm a movie star or something, but that sun is right in my eyes, so.
Okay.
A likely story. I'm Melanie French, and I lead the RR Living Property Management Group, which is also a component of Reef Holdings.
Hi, everybody. My name is Sid Shamim. I'm a founder for Headway Properties. That's my company. We are owner-operator in Texas and part of Phoenix.
Well, you guys all know who I am, but I'll just add 2 quick things. So Jackie's very humble, but Jacquie coaches many large and small organizations around the world on culture and building great organizations. And I'll make one other comment. So Melanie's picture's not up there. I added her to come speak so that Kip doesn't keep saying, "Ask Melanie." But also Melanie worked at DLP for many years and ran our property management before Kip stole her. So just add that detail.
All right.
And I am still an investor in DLP because I believe.
Wonderful. Well, it's good to see everyone. So the 3 topics we're going to cover are recruiting, retention, and then we're going to talk a little bit about kind of the managerial operating system called the Elite Execution System, which some of you know and maybe some of you don't know. So again, recruiting, retention, and then we're going to talk about a managerial operating system. So without question, I think it's safe to say that it's a global competition for talent, to try to find talented people that will come work at your company, to be part of the team. Without question, it's a global competition for talent. So that's our first theme, okay? So we'll start with you, Jacquie. So let's talk about recruiting. And I know that people have been taking notes. We've got notebooks out, so we're going to try to leave a couple folks here with some really good nuggets to take home and ideally to implement in their businesses. So talk about recruiting. What is there? 1 or 2 really? I mean, you could probably. I know you could probably list many, but just 1 or 2 nuggets that say, "Gosh, in your experience, the people that do these 1 or 2 things really is a big deal, and it's something that not too many companies are doing in terms of recruiting."
Thank you for the question. I think there's been a massive shift. There was, back in the day, I am that old, we used to refer to terms like personnel and human resources and other such outdated things. But now we talk about people, right? Head of people, talent, and so on and so forth. So the word choice has changed, and appropriately so. People are looking for meaning, for purpose, ties to the previous panel. But it's for all of us, and it's not just this generation that some people think is, obscure or different. We're all looking for meaning, looking for purpose, and we've been, certainly post-COVID, there's been a reawakening towards that. So I think the way that we look at recruiting is we start with who we are as an organization. What is our purpose? Simon Sinek calls it the why, and so on and so forth. But why are we here? What would the world lose if we weren't here? Once we're clear on that, then we can, it's almost like a magnet. You attract people who are called to that purpose. I remember, I'll leave it with this point, there was an organization that was interviewed, and they said, you know, all of your team members, they're extraordinary. You know, every single one of them is smiling and wants to serve. It was in the hospitality sector. And they interviewed the founder, and they said, how are you doing this? And they said, we hire people who like to smile. So it's less about, you know, teaching them how to do this thing that's unnatural, but attracting the people that will thrive in the soil that you've created.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree 100% with what Jackie said, and that's the way, you know, we look at it as well in recruitment. You know, as I said earlier, that previous panel, you know, our culture is really built around faith and family. And, you know, we do instill, you know, a very strong family atmosphere around Reef Holdings. And we, you know, are able to, you know, recruit great talent because it's really a fun place to work. And there is that, you know, family component to it and you know, giving back. And it's just, you know, we're going to hire those people that love what they do and love to smile and have those personality traits. You know, doesn't hurt that we have great food catered in, you know, daily, and a gym on the second floor after we've eaten too much to, you know, work out. And but you know, great fun place to be.
I think that in the talent acquisition or the human capital world, whatever you want to call it, it really comes down to energy. So the single most important thing that I look for in candidates is energy. Do they have that energy to be excited about what they do every day and to build passion with the people around them? Because when you think about it, you don't spend the 40 hours a week or 2,080 hours a year. You really are spending closer to 3,000 hours a year with the people that you work with. And you want to do that with people that you like, people that are like-minded, and the people that are going to help you grow. So I never hire for somebody that's looking for a job. That's not who we are. We're hiring for people that want to be bigger and better and a part of something that's great. We're hiring for those that want a career, and that's critical.
I don't think I can top all of these answers. But one thing we've been doing from a strategy perspective is we are aware why we exist, and we also know we're not Google or we're not Microsoft or we're not one of those big companies or even DLP that people know about us on instant basis. So what we do is we treat our recruiting more of a sales job, right? So you have your headhunters, like your cold callers, and all we do is we have a roster list of our potential marketplace employees. And what we try to do is we try to have them on our social media, LinkedIn, Facebook pages. And all we want to do is that have them see us, who we are, what we do, so that when it's time for them to think about us, they already know why they're applying for our interview, right? So by the time when we're recruiting somebody and we're asking for their values and matching our values, I think it's kind of too late. They got to know us before they come in, right? So it's kind of working out, so let's see.
Thank you. So I got a lot to say about this, but I'm going to try to keep it short. So I think, you know, Jackie hit on some of it initially. It's getting clear about, you know, who you are as an organization, what your purpose is, what you're here to do, and making that clear, and then getting clear on what kind of culture you want to have, and that's going to attract the right type of people for your organization. So that's a very starting point. That might sound obvious, and more companies are becoming aware of that. Then the second is you have to determine what is success for the role that you're going to hire. And that's where I find most organizations never do. They say, oh, I really need somebody to help out with this. We're really busy. We're really this. I need a COO. I need this. But they've never taken the time to determine what would success be for the person they're going to hire. No idea. So we built a tool we call the RREK, which is to get very clear, but what is the role I'm hiring for? What are the responsibilities? What are the expectations? What are the key outcomes or KPIs or whatnot for that role? And when you get really clear about that, then you can go out and find that right person. But that's not the end of the job. I know many people who, all right, they do all that work, finally they determine success, and they think people are just going to show up at their door because they've got a cool purpose statement and some values on their website. You have to go out there and do the same kind of work you would do to go source capital or find deals. You have to go out there and do sales activities, like Sid said, and marketing activities, right? You have to go out there and put in the work. So I know so many people, all right, now the next step, now you got to create the job ad and make it compelling. Did you actually post the job ad? Many organizations don't even get to that point. All right, now you've got the job ad out there. You hired a recruiter. You're out making calls. But then are you following up with the candidates who come in? I know most leaders don't. I'm the most responsive person at DLP still out of any of our leaders to all candidates coming in the door because I know how critical it is. No offense to our leaders in here, I'm our #1 hiring manager because I make it a top priority. I average 7 interviews a week and have for the past 10 years because I know interviewing great talent, talking to potential people is the most important thing I can do, right? So it's putting in the consistent effort, starting with the very big picture of who your organization is, what is success, and then do the work to go find those candidates. You know, property management's the easiest place in the world to find candidates, but we make it really hard. You know how you go find really good people to manage your properties? You go to the properties in the market that are performing really well and you take those people, right? It's not that hard. But you got to go out and do the work. So, go. I taught you too well.
Wonderful. So those are some great tips on recruiting. So let's talk about retention. This is a big one. Okay, everybody, retention. So Dan Buettner and his brother, anyone here heard of Dan Buettner? He lived to 100, Blue Zones. There's a show on Netflix, Live to 100. Raise your hand if you've heard of it. Okay? If you haven't heard of it, it's a tremendous show. You should definitely watch it. It's on Netflix. It's called Live to 100. So Dan and Nick Buettner are big fans of DLP, and they were on Don's podcast, and one of them said a quote that was basically something like this. So the research is about 30, this is directionally correct, okay? So about 30 years ago, the average American had 3 friends. Today, the average American has 1.5 friends. The definition of loneliness, by the way, is if you have less than 3 friends, okay? In case you're wondering how you get 1.5 friend, how do you get a half a friend? Well, I asked Don the other day, I said, well, Don, we're friends, right? We're kind of buddies. He goes, Bo, you're kind of half a friend. I was like, yeah. So that's how that works. So, but what's staggering is if you are lonely, the health consequences of that, it's the equivalent of smoking about 20 cigarettes a day. It's staggering, right? I mean, that's just absolutely staggering. So this building thriving communities, not only with the properties, which we talked about on the last panel, but with people you work with, is a big, big deal to create that community. So let's talk about retention. So Don, can we start there and go this way this time? So let's talk about retention. So share with the audience, hey, what are some of the things that are kind of you really focus on or that keep you up at night? So share some of your wisdom, please.
So I'll start with saying, I was just searching what it was. I'm just reading a book right now called Powerful by Patty McCord. She was the head of people for Netflix for many years. She's kind of the one who authored. Have you ever heard of the Netflix culture deck? And it's really, really great book. I'm reading a couple interesting other ones on hiring and culture right now too. But your question made me think of a couple things. So first is no offense, and we do lots of, we have beautiful offices now. We're building indoor basketball courts and pickleball courts right now. We've got gyms and lots of food and lots of celebrations and lots of activities and tons of enrichment programs and tons and tons and tons of that stuff. But that's not what keeps, people in organizations. Certainly to Bo's point, there's tons of study around if you have a close friend at work, the difference that makes in you sticking through tough times and staying there, having somebody you can talk to and confide in. But I think the biggest thing is that people want to be a part of doing meaningful work, solving big problems with people that they enjoy tackling and working hard with. So being in an organization, doing really great things, being around other talented, motivated, driven people doing great work with you, knowing you're making a difference in something, that's what people want way more than they want, really cool perks. one of the things that Patty says in her book that I thought was really interesting is, a lot of people use the term. You heard, Kip say it. I've said it many times. An organization, you're not building a family. This is not a family. You need to think about it as a sports team. And the best sports teams are always changing out players, always changing out things, right? The highest performing teams is never the same people all the time, because as your organization goes through change and evolves and the problems change and what you do and the size of the teams, people who are great in a startup and love being in a startup, and that's what they love to do, aren't great in a lot of times in larger, more structured organizations or different types of problems. So that's okay, right? So my point being is not all turnover is a bad thing. People going on to do exciting things in other opportunities, tackling other things that they get their passion about, starting their own businesses, whatever it may be, that's not a bad thing. So I've learned to have less focus around retention in the sense of just the word, more focus on, am I keeping really great people in the organization who are a fit for the culture, who are a fit for what the job needs today, but they're not being challenged, they're not clear on what success is, they don't feel they're making an impact, and that's where my last point about people knowing what success is in their job, knowing that they're making a difference, knowing what they're doing is what it's contributing to. It's a lot of what we talked about earlier today. That's what makes a big difference in people being engaged and staying in organizations, I think, more than anything else.
So, just a little bit of background. So, we're an owner-operator. We own apartment complexes, and I was trying to secure a sponsorship space where DLP was already there, and I couldn't get a spot, and I found out who is that DLP. I ordered a book from Don, this elite organization. And at the same time, a year ago, we were implementing another process called EOS, if you guys know about that. And I was like, man, this I connect, and I become an investor, right? Imagine being an owner-operator and investing into your, not competing, but a similar mindset, similar culture value, right? So the retention part is, so right after that incident about a year and a half ago, we changed our core values and that all revolves around win, right? You may have candidate who aced the interview, and one thing which I started implementing is, it says you 1% vision and 99% implementation, but if you're not retaining it, there's no implementation, right? There's no alignment when there's no implementation. So what we start doing, the tidbit that we did is, okay, your interview was good, you know what your job responsibility is, but there's a one-on-one that I make it mandatory for all the supervisors to work with their reporting staff, is to talk about not only the functional alignment, which is the job, but also the personal, and find out what's going on in the personal life and family. So knowing more than just the resume, and that just tells you so much that this person is, doing good or not, right? And if they're doing good, are they mentally there? Still finding the purpose of what to do. So that 30-minute monthly or quarterly meeting, opens up a lot of information for us. So that's what we're doing.
Thank you, Sid. For me, I think of it as the ACE. We have to be authentic. We have to communicate clearly. We have to have engaging execution. And then at the end of the day, you have to recognize and reward. Why do I say ACER? It's because people want to feel valued. Our team members come to work every day, and they want to feel valued. And we want them to be passionate. So those tie together. Retention starts and ends with your leaders, absolutely. Because people will come to work for people they feel are like-minded, but they do need frequent communication and clarity on what the expectations are. Don talked about the RREK. I am a huge believer in that. It is a game changer. We had launched it on our corporate team, and now we're launching it on all of the community team members as well. So that's a big part of it. Another thing that I think is important is every single week, even though I'm the CEO, I have a huddle call that every team member is on. And we spend 25 to 30 minutes. We go through what our KPIs are, what our goals are, who is working well, what their, that recognition for all the successes, and our team members send in recognition. for their family and for the business. So we involve them from the first day on. And having that and those team members feeling like they have an open door to me that is more than just words. I know virtually all of them by name. And that is important when you have 450 people. It's not easy, but we're in it together. I'm relying on them to execute on their job. They need to rely on me to be the leader they need.
Yeah, I agree with everything everybody said. I don't think it's any one thing. I think it's a combination of all. You want to create the right work environment where people are excited about coming to work, and you need to keep each person engaged and feel that they are really truly committed and contributing to the success of the company. And I think if you do that and you have a great work environment, retention does come. And I do agree with Don. You're not looking for necessarily 100% retention because there is evolution and the companies do change, and sometimes change is good, but I think that it is really a combination of what we have all mentioned up here, and it's not any just one thing.
I think there's so much power in doing the recruiting part well. That's a lot of upfront work. So your ability to define what it is that you're looking for and make that match is really, really a great precursor and a must before retention. So a person is likely to stay and flourish if they're a good fit for the role. Sounds obvious, but oftentimes we as hiring managers are so hurried, frenzied, oftentimes, let's just say, not prioritizing the hire because we're so busy, but all that does is dig the deeper and deeper and deeper hole. Then you aren't really taking the time to say, wait a minute, this is what I need, because you're so desperate, and then we hire, fill, and flip. That's such a natural process that we have to fight against. So we have to try our best to slow it down, and Don often says prepare to win. It's seeing the org of the future need before the need is there, so that you can, be in the marketplace, as Don referenced, always interviewing, but also know what that need is. I often think of the holy grail is, as you're interviewing, it's technical competence, joy for the role, which Melanie referenced, and then organizational need. All three are moving. Technical competence shifts, somebody can fall in love with or out of love with whatever it is they're doing and try something else, and the organizational need definitively changes, especially if you're growing. But if you do that piece well, hopefully you're creating an environment for them to flourish. The second part that I think we don't often do a fantastic job of is intentional onboarding. So we have this, oh gosh, Bo is gonna be a perfect fit for this seat, right? All of a sudden, the reason why he got hired and went through 1, 2, 3, 5, 12 interviews, whatever your process is, you're thinking they're a 10 out of 10, best in the world. And you bring them on board, well, we have a responsibility to help them flourish. What are the tools, resources, onboarding necessary to equip them? After that, clearly the responsibilities for the employee to perform, but giving them the requisite tools to flourish in that onboarding, and then the ongoing alignment and so on is so critical, because it's a shared success. Because if they win, we all win.
Wonderful, thank you. So we've talked about recruiting, we've talked about retention. I'm just going to touch on this 1 second, but if you do have to let somebody go, there's some really cool ways to do that, right? And they're absence that someone, something that's misbehave or something that's really bad. But I know there's a lot of companies. DLP does a great job of this. People have left DLP to go chase a dream. Hey, support it, right? Support it. Still send them birthday cards, right? So it doesn't. There's this notion that maybe there's a wall that goes up if someone doesn't work at your company anymore. That doesn't have to happen. You can tear down that wall and have a great relationship. So just wanted to say that nugget there. Okay, so I've talked to a lot of people in the room. I tried to grab most people as they came in, but in my hand is Don's first book called Building an Elite Organization. And I know that some people in this room know exactly what this book is about, the elite execution system, and use it. I know some people in this room know about it but don't use it, and then I know some people in this room that really don't know anything about it, okay? So we're going to kind of thread the needle with this last category. So this book here, and I know that everyone on the panel is very familiar with this. They use the operating system. Sid, I think you've kind of morphed EOS and this one together, which is great. So here it is, okay? I'll give you the top down, and then the panel is going to do a good job of kind of going into some details. But if you take a company that's full of A players, okay, that don't use a managerial operating system, and you take that company of all A players, and then they go head to head with a company that's filled with A, B, and C players that use a managerial operating system, that second company is going to outwork them all day long. And matter of fact, they're going to accomplish more in 90 days than that other company does in most likely a year. This is one of the many secret weapons of DLP. And by the way, we estimate that thousands of companies are using. Here's the book right here. Here's the book. Read it and implement it. So this is a really powerful tool. So Don, if I can start with you, if that's okay, because you're the author, and this is a great book, and it's just so great. Tell us how this book, The Elite Execution, helps with culture and people. Like, can you connect the dots for the audience, please?
Yeah, I'll be pretty brief. So, a lot of us in this room probably read a number of different books and taking different ideas from, experts and gurus around different topics. But usually most things you read, it'll give you the lens that if you just got good at hiring, like we just talked about, your business will accomplish every goal. If you just got good at retention, if you just got good at culture, if you just got good at marketing, if you just got good at running podcasts or content marketing or leadership or a million different topics. There's experts and great experts out there. But the reality is that to get consistent, repeatable results, you need a system that takes into all the elements of your business into account and builds an overall plan that allows you to grow consistently. So we kind of defined it as that an organization has 4 quadrants: strategy, people, operations, and acceleration, and they have to be part of one clear plan. If I've got unlimited leads and people interested, but I can't operationally handle it, I could go out of business, right? There's a saying I always remind myself of, that more companies go out of business due to indigestion than starvation. To boil the system down to the simplest sense, certainly helps you lay out clear strategy and direction. But at the end of the day, it's a system around how do you go about setting and achieving goals, and how do you go about communicating as your organization grows and change. And that's really what the systems are, is a rhythm around communication, one-on-one, with alignment with our team members, with our broader teams, how we solve our problems through communication, and how we determine what are our goals and how we go about achieving them. And it's what has allowed us, is one of the main principles that allowed us to have the consistent, repeatable growth. And for me personally, and I know some of you are in the same situation, for me personally, to have many different business lines, to have multiple different companies growing at the same time, because everybody's speaking the same language, we're all sharing the same goals, we all have the same values. So it allows me to kind of expand my time and our top leaders' time across many different business lines, because we're all operating on the same set of tools and principles and moving in the same direction, speaking the same language.
No, exactly. I think before I come across this EES system, I was implementing, like I said, another system. And when I dive into it, I realized that this is the difference to me was clearly evident, that there's a business owner who is in real estate, have multiple verticals of business, and he's the one who's writing the system cohesively, right? He's not a sales guy, he's not an accountant, he's an owner whose core responsibility is to make sure that all of these functions are working without a lapse, right? So that was, for me, is a big part to realize that, yeah, there's other systems out there, but what makes this one differentiated is written by somebody who built the company from scratch, gone through all the process, right? And that's, there's insight that you cannot find on other books who've been written by professors who never ran a business, right? So those are.
And I'll just one thing. Who here uses EOS or is familiar with EOS? Okay, good. Yeah, so it's a great system. Gino Wickman, who's the author of the book Traction, who invented the system EOS, he's the first person who read that book. His words were, "This is EOS on steroids." And to your point, and Gino's a friend of mine, and he has one virtual assistant. That's his company. He has one virtual assistant. He doesn't like managing people or running organizations, right? So it's a different mindset when you're running a large, complicated organization.
You said exactly what I meant to say. Is there's a different mindset altogether. Not looking at just a sale of a business, but execution of a whole sale of a book, but execution of a whole business.
You know, I will say that having worked with and for Don is absolutely the most disciplined individual I have ever met. He is intentional with his time and disciplined. It gives him an edge in writing this book and in bringing about this topic for you. So the elite execution system has so many different facets, but it really is about bringing your whole organization together and setting up your goals, setting up how you'll achieve it, because let's face it, you will never get where you're going if you haven't laid out the roadmap. And that is much easier said than done when you are working with everybody from a grounds technician on a community up through your senior vice president or your EVP. Everybody has a different need and they learn differently. So one of the pieces of EES is that by setting consistency, you are bringing commonality to every single team member, regardless of what their role is. Everybody's clear, they understand, and then they execute towards that goal. So it's another form of communication as well.
Well, I'm afraid there's nothing I can add to that. It's all been said. It's there's nothing more important than communicating and being on the same page, particularly the larger your organization is, and having defined roles, defined goals, and ways of measuring those goals. And I think that system does in fact work well.
I think I'd be remiss if I didn't comment on Don's second book, which is Building an Elite Career. And I think the reason that matters relative to this panel is this: you can have the purpose and you could do the recruitment and retention pieces that Bo mentioned, but a lot of the things that were just talked about could be misunderstood as mechanistic. What do I mean by that? Or way back before the turn of the century, we were all entrepreneurs, right? We had our own businesses. There was no such thing as factories and foremen and all of the things that happened with the turn of the century. And then over time, this notion of assembly lines and really looking at an organization as a machine, we were, even the way we educate, right? Everyone's put in a box. You don't really ask questions. Now it's like, wait, you put me in a box and you want me to be an out-of-the-box thinker. How does this work? There's been an evolution over time where now entrepreneurial thinking is a thing. Well, if you just do the system and the discipline and say, I need you to do this and you to do this and not to ask any questions, just do it, it's not going to grow well, because an organization is just an organism, a group of what I'll call imperfect people, all of us included, trying to do extraordinary things. But if I'm drawn to a company that's growing and they look at me as a whole person, I might stay, right? And so part of the book talks about, I think it references this whole thing about a blueprint for prosperity and fulfillment. So this notion of living fully, tying it back to thriving communities, right? If I'm a whole person that's showing up to work for you, and you meet with me not just because of the widgets or the output or the outcomes I'm delivering to you, because your whole goal is profit, but you understand my hopes, my dreams, my goals, I will flourish perhaps while I'm employed by you, and or one day if I want to start my own company, you'll say, congratulations, you did a great job while we're here, I'll support that. Some of the things that we've seen at DLP is people, whether it's Patrick with his granola company or podcasters, authors, small business people who launch businesses to compete. And it's an absolute, people are encouraged to do that. While you're here, thrive. We will thrive together. And if you launch off, you're going to be the best ambassador for the company, and that's a win-win.
Well said. Well said. And I want to double click on one thing that Jackie said about if you're thought of as a team member, oh, they care about me as a whole person. So I've worked at Goldman Sachs, I've worked at JP Morgan, I worked at FASB, which is an accounting organization, and I remember, and I've done a bunch of cool internships, but I remember when I first joined DLP almost 4 years ago, one of the first things that stuck was I'm writing down my quarterly rock, just some goals for people that don't know what a rock means. And I had to write down 3 personal and 3 business. I said, I've never had a company ask me my personal goals. Never. They just did. They did. I don't. Maybe they kind of care somewhere, but if they really did care, they would ask, right? So I just think it's so neat. It's one of the things that DLP does is they want to know hey, what are some of your personal goals? And then it's a great way to talk and connect with people. So one of the things that I know everyone on the panel is a big fan of, and we have this over here. By the way, there's a whole bunch of really good. Don's book is over there. This great toolkit is in my hands here. I think maybe Don, I'll have you touch on it, but because it's here, people. So I would say that the 2 most important moments of your life are the moment you're born and the moment you know why. And I suspect that you're here because you're longing for something, right? You're longing to learn. You're trying to be the best you can be. And one of the things that Don and the team on this panel, like, how many events have you gone to where you go home and your notebook is empty, right? That's not going to happen today, okay? So Don's book is a must, okay? Don's second book, which Jackie described, I actually call it the third book because of the journal, but are amazing. But this right here, what's in my hand, and there's copies of it over here, is an absolute game changer. This will change your life. And that's what I'm going to say about it. And then Don or anyone on this panel, Kip, you know about the 100X, you know about the 100X. But do you want to just tee this up because people can, take it with them, and it's a good thing to have.
Sure. Yeah. So I'll touch on that, and then we will take live questions. I know everybody we're up against time here, but we'll take any questions for the panel here and make sure to stay on track. But yeah, that toolkit. Everything that's in there, and lots and lots of other things that you heard us talk about today, such as example, we talked about REKs as a simple example, or some of the things Jackie talked about in terms of investing in the whole person. All the different tools we use, all the different tools that are in the books, you can download them all for free on our website. I think it's dlpcapital.com/elite, and everything in there where you can download the editable formats, copies of mine or ours as an organization. And in that toolkit has a lot of the different tools around personal development, family development in there that we use that have helped us to build the kind of consistent discipline and results that we've generated. So I don't remember every single item that's in there because that's a recent kind of toolkit we put in, but I know the personal compass and family compass, which are kind of tools around overall determining your long-term goals and vision and why you're here on this earth, what you're called to do, down to your, what are you going to do as your next 90-day rocks are in there, and a bunch of other great tools.
I just want to add one thing. In DLP website, Living Fully is the training that you did last year with your team. I kind of stole it, and I'm doing it with my team as well. It's one of the things that you can do a favor to your employees. 2 things: Elite career book and the Living Fully training that I would highly recommend to do it with your team members. Doesn't matter what grade they are in. That's something that I can almost tell you, at least my staff, the maintenance staff, they were never exposed to that idea. And, I've seen changes, so highly recommend that.
Wonderful. Well, let's do this. Let's start off with, let's just see how this goes. 2 questions from the audience, and then we can also you can come up after and ask, the panelists questions directly. But let's take 1 or 2. Anyone have a burning question? We want to go first?
If not that sunset, just turn your head.
Yeah.
Bill, I'll start us off here.
Yeah, sure.
Got me on here? Okay. I'll start us off. We talked a lot about kind of retention and things like that, and shared some kind of really great ideas, some things that I think are standard issue, and then even some things that are above and beyond. And Don, I wanted to just ask you to share a little bit about kind of dream-ons. And part of the reason I said it is because I think it's something so unique and so amazing. And on top of that, I just got an email that I'm going to read for you really quickly. Don will tell you what these are. Dream-on. Well, actually, why don't we start there? Tell us about what dream-ons are.
Thank you. And the dream-ons are something we've been doing in our organization for a number of years. I didn't invent that term. I actually learned it from another company many years ago, and I said, I love that. I'm gonna do it. It's and it's a great thing talking about building thriving communities to do at your communities as well. But it's like Make-A-Wish for our brought through our employees. So our employees can bring forward a dream request they have, and it could be something like I want to go to Disney World is a common one we get, or I want to go to this concert or the special vacation, or it can be I want to have all my kids to come home for Christmas and because they live around the country and I can't afford to do that, or it could be my husband lost his legs and can't drive and I need my car fit out, or I want to have a child and I need in vitro or adoption, or everything across the spectrum we've done and we've granted. So we ask our team members to submit the simple request. They can submit for themselves, they can submit for a colleague, or they can submit for somebody else in their life, a family member, somebody else they know and need. And our goal is to grant as many of these dreams as possible. We always do a ton of them around the holidays, but we try to do all year long as many as we can. And it's been such an incredible, cool joy over many years now.
I want to share this quick email while you're thinking of your questions. So just as an example of a dream on we just did recently, we had a staff person at one of our properties that through the course of several different events had become homeless and was living in his car. We became aware of that, and one of the other staff members submitted a dream on and said, could we lend him one of our properties for 6 months to help him get back on his feet? At the same time he's dealing with this, he's dealing with a cancer diagnosis, and his sense of self-worth, his mental health, all these kinds of issues are really pressing in on this guy. So we were able to, through our Dream On program, offer him a Dream On. And today we just got an email that says that this gentleman he had started to refuse treatment because he just thought, life's just not worth living. Working at our properties. He came in today, he requested a little bit of a leave off because he's decided to re-engage in treatment. He's going to go for it. He's going to try to live his best life. He says, when DLP gave me that dream on and invited me to come in and live here and showed me that I'm valuable, I'm cared for as an employee, that gives me something to live for. And the thread of emails in this is all of his coworkers who are responding saying, I love working at this company. I can't believe I get to be a part of this. So through creating this culture of loving our employees and caring for our employees and going above and beyond and going the distance, it's making a difference in the lives of, you should see this thread. It's a long thread of all these employees who are just fired up because of the way that we're loving and caring for employees, enhancing their lives.
But let me just add one quick thing, completely unrelated. But so Danny never, I don't think, introduced himself, but Danny's the executive director of our foundation, and also really serves as pastor and to our organization, does a lot of chaplain type services, is there for our team. He runs we call Kingdom Group, kind of Bible study group in our organization, which we make that available to you guys as well. We have investors and other operators who come and join us, people in their organization we welcome you to join us. But I just want to encourage you, and a few of you came up to me after I talked earlier and said some nice things about it, but be confident being faith forward in your organization. If you are faith, if you're a believer, be confident doing so. Glad to share things that we do that work, what Danny does, how you come alongside and show everybody in the organization you love them and you care about them and you're there for them no matter what their beliefs are. But help people who are lost to find the Lord, and it's an amazing opportunity. It's the biggest opportunity we have, and I think apartment life and in general, we kind of danced around that a little bit in our conversation panel either. That's one of the most amazing things they do, is as they said, they're faith forward and helping people in times of need. You did a great job mentioning that trust that gets built, and that's the biggest thing any of us can do in building thriving communities in our organizations and our communities. So I just encourage you to be confident in doing so. It's scary to do. You're worried you're going to lose investors. You're worried you're going to upset employees. You're worried you're going to turn people off and lose business or revenue. All valid concerns, or get sued or whatnot. But it's well worth it, and we're happy to share with you what we do and what others that we know do that works. So, thank you.
Wonderful. Well, let's give these panelists a big warm round of applause. Thank you. Any final announcements before people can come up and ask you questions, kind of on a one-on-one basis?
Just logistics. Some of you RSVP'd for the dinner, so if you've done that, I think we're going to walk over together at 6:15. Otherwise, feel free. There's refreshments here, and everyone's available for questions.
So I want to add just one more thing. So we are putting together, we're calling our Building Thriving Community Playbook of, what are the set of kind of options and ideas and ways to implement, building a thriving community in your rental communities and in your organizations. So we've put a lot of work around this already. We heard some of the things we're doing from panelists, but a number of you in the room talked about cool things you're doing. Anybody wants to be a part of that and join us, and we'll be having ongoing committees over and want to be a part of thinking through and developing what is the playbook for building a thriving community that you can sort of pull a page from and implement into your communities. Let us know. We'd love to engage you in helping us take this start of this conversation into something more meaningful. So appreciate everybody. Thank you for your time and attention today.
Wonderful. And then we have Jacquie just pulled out the names out of the jar here. So remember what you would win? A free vacation, one of the DLP properties. Tim, are you here? Tim Fergstadt.
Ah, awesome.
Come on up, Tim. Wonderful. Good? Okay, come on up and ask questions. Panel's up here. Thanks, everybody.